Yeah, we're going to talk about it. My name is Jalen Barnes. Welcome to episode 4 of Manhood. Welcome back, everyone. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell. If this is your first time, again, I'm Jalen Barnes, and this is my series, Manhood. All right, today we're talking about something that obviously you could tell from the title is a very interesting subject. It's something I want to talk about for a long time. So let's have a conversation about pornography. I was probably 11 years old when I was first exposed to pornography, the first time I ever saw a pornographic image. And from there, a lot more followed. As someone who's had many experiences with pornography, there's a lot that I can say on this topic. And this video is talking to anybody who wants to change, who wants to get away from it, someone who views pornography habitually and does not know how to free themselves from it, do not know how to stop. If you're that person, this video is talking to you. I'm not going to waste time trying to convince you that it's wrong, that it's something that you shouldn't do. The person that I'm talking to, you already know that it is. You just really don't know how to stop. But part of figuring out how to stop is, let's say it's admitting that, knowing that you have a problem. For me, I think it's more so understanding how that problem is actually affecting you. Because here's the thing, if you're a Christian like I am, then you know that viewing pornography, masturbating to it, that's sin. You know that it's lust, and there's a multitude of scriptures that you could go to. Even though the Bible doesn't explicitly say anything about pornography itself, you can find a number of scriptures to support that God isn't pleased with this. He doesn't like me doing this. And yet it's still not enough to keep you from doing it. I know it wasn't enough for me. I knew logically in my brain that God didn't like this, and this was sin, but it didn't stop me from doing it. You know, some of us are married and you think, okay, my wife definitely doesn't like this. You know, this is something that hurts her and it feels like cheating to her. And even to me, it feels like cheating, but you know, I still haven't stopped. So somehow, even knowing that your wife doesn't like it, it's still not enough. Well, how about the fact of what it does to society and to culture? How about the fact of all the women who are lost in human and sex trafficking and how the industry profits off of that? Maybe that's not enough either. Just acknowledge that, yeah, that's happening. I really shouldn't support this. This is just morally wrong. Still not enough. How about the fact that it has a negative effect on your brain? Yeah, chemically speaking, you know, it alters your brain. It's very much like a drug, gets you addicted, and then it changes your patterns, changes your intimacy. It just affects you and just can ruin you. You can look up those statistics yourself. But like I said, I'm not going to talk about any of that because chances are if you get into this video, you've been through all that, you know all of that, and yet still this thing has a hold on you. You know, one thing I realized when you're dealing with any sort of sin, anything that you're not supposed to do, but that you keep habitually doing, it helps to know why I shouldn't do this. And you think, well, you just listed a bunch of reasons. Yeah, but none of that has anything to do with you. See, the argument for pornography, people who are pro watching porn, is that, you know, it's a victimless crime. It's a victimless sin. It's only affecting me. It's between me and my computer. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not even fornicating with anybody, having sex. There's no chance of spreading an STD. I'm not cheating on my spouse with another woman, with another person. It's harmless. It's just me. But it is harming you. And I'm not talking about just your brain. I mean, that should be enough. But let's talk about what it actually does to you. You gotta understand, when God says thou shalt not do something, it's not just because he came with a bunch of rules. Now, if that was the reason why, then okay, that's good enough. He's God. I mean, he can make those rules. But every single thing he tells us not to do, single thing that he labels as sin, as missing the mark, it affects you negatively in some way. But we never see it because the devil doesn't show us that. He presents the sin, the idea, the attractiveness of it, the allure, but he never shows us the back end, how it's negatively going to affect us, trap us, and put us in bondage. And we're going to need Jesus to free us. You know, when you look through the Bible, you see a lot of scriptures on lust, adultery. You even see Jesus talking about to look on another woman and desiring her, a woman that's not yours. That's committing adultery just by the thought of it, just doing it with your eyes. Well, that's definitely should be enough to not watch pornography. I mean, that's all you're doing, looking and desiring something or someone. Well, that's lust, so that's like committing adultery. So like Jesus said, that's sin. That's bad enough right there, even if you never do the physical act yourself. But, you know, I'll be honest with you, maybe this is not you, but this is me. As I was looking through all the scriptures on adultery and all the scriptures on lust and sexual sin, it just wasn't clicking for me. Yeah, again, logically, I knew this was not pleasing to God, this was sin, but none of those things was watching pornography. It just wasn't. I mean, honestly, there was nothing in the Bible about pornography. That didn't make me think that it was okay, but it did keep the devil able to, you know, trick me into not getting free as fast as I could. To thinking that just maybe, it's not that damaging because there's nothing in here about the effects. I can see the effects of adultery on someone's life, but since there's nothing in here about porn, you know, I can't really say how negatively this is going to affect me. It's really just between me and that computer. Well, it wasn't. And here's actually what's happening to you as you're watching pornography habitually. I would look through the word, and eventually I finally found it. The thing that I saw and said, this is what pornography is. This is what we can look at in the Bible and equate to what's happening now to a man when he views pornography. And I realized this is what was happening to me. Let's talk about King Solomon. He's one of my favorite Bible figures. You know, richest man to ever live. If we calculate his wealth today, it's still believed that no one who has lived since him in any part of history, ancient or now, that has matched his wealth. Why we equate him as the wisest man. He wrote the Proverbs that people, even sinners, can look at and see that this is wisdom literature. This is something that if you bide your life and set it up like this, financially, the way you raise your children, the way you run a kingdom or society, it would be perfectly fine if you ran it according to Proverbs and you would be able to succeed. So, wisest man, foreign leaders came to listen to what he had to say. But that was Solomon in his early life. And yet at the end of his life, you see something entirely different. The end of his life, he was referenced as a fool, a drunkard, and someone whose heart was turned away from God. How could a man who literally talked to God, heard his voice, turn away from him and worship other idols? What happened to him? King Solomon had access to something that many ancient kings in that time had access to. It was a great privilege for them. They had harems. And a harem in that time, and I wasn't there and I'm not a scholar or Hebrew scholar or someone who studies ancient history, but I get the general idea. In this harem, you had a great group of women that you could access at any time with the snap of your fingers. Some of you are already getting the connection here of where I'm going, but just stay along. It's pretty mind-blowing when you really think about it. Now, everybody had access to this, just kings mostly, as far as I could tell. And Solomon had multiple wives and multiple concubines. When you combine the number all together, it's something like 900. 900 that he had access to at any moment. Now, when I looked at that number, one day I really thought about it and just said, why? Why so many, Solomon? Why not 100? Why not 50? What was the stopping point? Let me just not think like a Christian for a second. Let me just think like a carnal man. That's appealing, right? That many women, as many as you want. But why so many? Why did it take 900 to be satisfied? Were you ever satisfied? The answer is no. Pornography is a lot like having access to a harem. Snap of your fingers, click of a button. You can find something that you want, exactly the way you want it. And when you see it, you can have this interaction, this experience. Not a connection, but an interaction and an experience. And when you're done with it, you can click to the next one, and click to the next one, and click to the next one. This is what was happening with Solomon. I want you to just imagine this in your mind. He would go somewhere, go to another country, go to another kingdom, or even his own kingdom. And he would see a woman, and because he was king, he could just say, I want you. And that was it. No one could stop him. He could have whatever he wanted. And it was just between him and his own personal desires. And these women weren't actual people to him. 900 women, he didn't know all their names. They probably didn't speak the same languages. But he could have this experience, this interaction, not a connection, but an interaction with them because it felt good. And that's pornography, right? It feels good. You don't know these women's names. You don't know who they are. You see them once and then you move on to the next one and you forget about them. All those interactions you can't even remember. I know I can't even remember all of them. And you would think, at what point is enough? At what point are you satisfied? Why is it when I see one, then I go to the next one, and then I go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one? Maybe I put it away for a while, but then I need it again. If someone cut you off from the internet and you only had every video or image pornographically that you had ever seen, that wouldn't be enough. Eventually you would be dissatisfied and you would want more. You would want to access more. Why is that? Because it's not meant to satisfy you. It's meant to control you. See, Solomon thought that he was in control. I mean, he was the king, and these women didn't have any rights outside of what he gave them. They were his harem. They existed for his pleasure. And yet it controlled him because he couldn't stop. There was no stopping point because it's not something that can satisfy you. Only for one moment, for one short moment, do you feel satisfied. And then that hunger arises and you go for it again. Why is that? Well, the devil set it up that way. I talked in the previous series about the idea of pursuit, that a man is designed to pursue something. That's why a man in Genesis 2 is supposed to leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. So the devil created something that you could pursue and pursue and pursue and never be satisfied. Here's the thing that no one knows, and I'm talking to married men right now. I don't say no one knows, but a lot of people don't know, is that you're meant to be satisfied with your spouse. Solomon is also believed to have written Ecclesiastes. And in Ecclesiastes, he made a statement, something along the lines of, it's wise or it's good for a man to have his wife and be satisfied with her? How could a man who had all these women tell somebody else that the best thing that can possibly happen is for you to just have one wife and be satisfied with that one wife and not chase anyone else? Well, I would say he'd be qualified to talk about that since he did the exact opposite. He knows what it's like on the other end of the spectrum. Apparently, for all the chasing those women he did, for all the clicking through of every potential experience and getting anything he wanted, however he wanted, any race, any kind, any body type, any look, any language, it was never enough to satisfy him. And he came to realize at some point in his life, before he became a fool, that it would have been better for him if he had just stuck with one woman. See, God created marriage in such a way that you're supposed to be satisfied. The book of Proverbs, also written by Solomon, most of them anyway, actually mentions that. It talks about how you're supposed to be satisfied with the wife of your youth and drink from her well sexually over and over again and be satisfied with her. It's possible. A lot of people don't know how to do it, so they don't think so, and that's why they chase other women or they chase pornography because they're dissatisfied with their sexual relationship with their wife. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to pour all that energy into your wife and be satisfied, because the other end of the spectrum, chasing after somebody else, a series of people, no matter how many, it's not some super fantasy. It actually doesn't work. Solomon proved it. He went through 900 and it wasn't enough. You got to think, some of those women he only was with once. He saw them, experienced them. There's only so much time in the day. He couldn't sleep with them all at once. But he kept going through experience after experience after experience, never knowing their names, seeing them only once, never visiting them again. And that was it. That was the life experience he had with sexual intimacy. And it was not intimate, and it bound him. So what did it do from him? Well, we know that it actually turned his heart away from God. He actually ended up worshiping other gods because of all these connections, well, lack of connection he built with all these women, all this chasing and pursuing he did, because our pursuit was supposed to be for God and the one woman that he gave us. That was literally supposed to be it. But he pursued something else, and it turned his heart away from God, but also destroyed him and turned him away from being what God called him to be. Wisest man there ever was, he became a fool. So the very thing that God designed you to be, this pursuit of this negative thing can actually turn you into the exact opposite of whatever it is that you actually are, what God put in you and designed you from birth. It shuts down your ability to be intimate with your spouse. It's not impossible to reverse, trust me, and I'll talk about that in part 2 of this video. But it's something that makes it very difficult and impossible to build a sexual, intimate connection with your spouse. Intimacy, like emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy, that true connection. You can't do it while pursuing pornography at the same time. The two don't go together because it's pulling you in two different directions. So you can't do both. You've got to choose one or the other. You can't do both at the same time. So if you want to build something with your wife, even if it seems inexistent now, you've got to put pornography away. But the thing that it's designed to do is to catch you, and never let you go. So that's what pornography is like. It's having access to a harem of women. You don't know them, you don't respect them. It doesn't really matter what they want or what they're doing, because you're just there for one experience, and then you move on and on and on, and you just keep swiping and going and searching and searching, and it's never enough. It will never be enough. You'll just keep going and going, trying to scratch an itch that doesn't truly exist. You ever notice someone on drugs had a jonesing for, and it's like they need it, they just gotta have it because they're addicted to this drug? Well, they didn't always need it. Before they ever had that drug, they weren't jonesing for it. So why is it now that it's become a necessity for them to live? They have to have it, or their body literally convulses to the point of seeming like they're going to die, and they could die just from being separated from that drug. Because that drug created a void in them that it only could fill. And now it's become a need, a false necessity that must be filled by only that thing. And that's what pornography does. That's what any sin does that you repeat over and over again until it becomes an iniquity. It lays a seed in you, becomes a desire, and then that temptation draws you out over and over again. And it's created this void in you that was never meant to exist. You're only supposed to pursue two things, God and your wife. But now you're pursuing something else, and it's created a void that can't be filled. No matter how much you pursue it, it just digs a deeper and deeper well of emptiness. And at the end of the day, you've lost your identity. You've lost who you really are. That's what pornography does. Now, the end game, the way it manifests to different people, is different for everybody. It sometimes destroys people's families. Sometimes it does graduate to something else. It's just a stepping stone to adultery and whoremongering and fornication endlessly and sex addiction or whatever else. Sometimes it graduates to a depression and to suicide. It can lead you into other things, almost like a gateway drug. But sometimes just in and of itself, it's enough to ruin you. Is enough to destroy you, to destroy your desires and your passions, to be successful, and all these different things in the natural world that, do matter. And it definitely affects your ability to be successful in your marriage. So that's what pornography does. That's what I wanted to have a conversation about today. Because sometimes knowing that, yeah, it is wrong, God doesn't like it, yeah, it is sin, is not enough. You got to realize what it's doing to you, and you got to have evidence of someone else that's affected. So learn from the wisdom of Solomon. It's better to just have one woman, because chasing after that, all of that, 900 people, some of us have had more experiences with that, with the videos and images we've looked at in pornography. And yet it still somehow has never been enough. And I promise you it never will be. So you might as well find out how to stop now. So come back next week, because next time I'm going to talk about, and I don't even know what's going to be next week. It may be later on this week. I'll decide how I want to release it, but just stay tuned to the channel and subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll get a premiere notification of when the next video is coming out. And if I already do know the date, and at the time I'm releasing this, check the description below and I'll put down there when the next video is coming out. But in that next video, I'm actually going to explain how you can actually break up with pornography and change your desires. Because sometimes it feels like I can't stop. I've tried over and over again. And there's great resources out there. I'm not the only one here, quote unquote, selling you how to, break free from pornography addiction or anything like that. I'm not saying that any other resource is incorrect or doesn't work, but I'm just going to show you what the Lord showed me. So if you want to see that, come on back next week and find out how to break up with pornography. Thank you for watching this week's Manhood. If it's helped you, let me know. If you got any questions about this topic, about something dealing with your struggle, email me at jalenandcacie@gmail.com. And I'll be glad to help any way that I can and to answer any questions you have as the Lord leads me. But thank you for watching. See you guys next time. That's Manhood.